digging into this game, I've presented 3 what could be concerns for Oregon at Penn State. Suke did not like one of them, lukewarm on another, and the third was a concern. The first one was Dan Lanning 1-2 at Oregon in true top 25 road games. Yeah. So they haven't had many games, but he's only won one of them, and it was at Utah. This, a little different. Top 5 team here. And Happy Valley was like 100. What is it? How many people are in this?
100,000 plus, like 101, something like that.
2 was experience. Penn State is the more experienced team. That didn't seem to bother you too much. But 3, Will Stein, could his eye be off the ball? That is always a thing to Suke. Okay, so here's the next one. Concern or not a concern, Dante Moore's handling of fire. So you've got a kid here who has 13 starts. Mm-hmm. Drew Aller has 32. Yeah. Moore, I went back and looked at Dante Moore's biggest true top 25 road games as a starter. Now, granted, he was at UCLA. That was an 8-win team when he was the starter there. So they weren't bad, but he was new. It was his first year as a starter. They lost both of those games. He only scored 7 points at Utah, and they dropped 24 at Oregon State, but lost. His numbers are not good in those 2 games. 2 touchdowns, 4 picks. Only 19 of 68. But again, different quarterback, different system.
Looks completely different.
So Dante Moore's handling of fire. I just go back to the playoff game and Jim Knowles and the way they just had Gabriel running for his life. Yeah. How does Dante Moore handle that if Knowles can get that kind of pressure?
Absolutely, it's a concern. I think, and you could say this almost across the board, when you don't know, there's a lot of groups that just haven't faced fire. I mentioned the secondary. Big concern because they have not played in these sorts of games, and Dante Moore has not played in this sort of game. Dante Moore did not play meaningful snaps at UCLA. I'm sorry. That thing was a disaster. It was 4 or 5 games, and it was done. And now he's sat at Oregon, and the first 4 games have been spoon-fed to him, and he's looked amazing. Right? He does exactly what you're supposed to do against inferior competition, but he has not faced pressure. He has not been forced out of the pocket. Yeah, I mean, he had a couple overthrows. He's had the 1 interception at Northwestern, but I mean, essentially he has been as good as you could conceivably want. But what we don't know about Dante Moore is, like you said, what happens when he gets heated up? What happens when there's pressure in his lap? What happens when they have to come from behind? On the road, what happens now when you can't audible at the line because there's 100,000 people? So 100% of these, it's not even close. That is by far the biggest concern, is this will be his first true in the fire against a team that is comparable to what you have, and in a hostile environment. Absolutely is a concern.
So that goes hand in hand with the next one. This is the same defensive coordinator who stuffed your offense in the playoffs last year.
Yes.
Concern?
Yes.
Not a concern.
Yeah, it's a concern. And it's, I mean,
Jimmy Knowles.
And again, it's the first team that physically might be able to do something against you. Like, everyone knows when you're sitting there in Oregon and you watch your team play. I use an example of this. I was doing my little West Coast Bias, which is just my football little podcast. And I brought up an example of, let's say I'm a center, right? And I have to, because I'm just living in my world of offensive line, I have to reach a 3 technique. Outside zone, so I'm a center, and I have to get all the way to a defensive tackle that's playing on the shoulder of my guard. It's a tough block for a center to make. And for the first 4 weeks, we're running this outside zone, and I make that block, right? All I need is a little chip from my left guard, and I can scoop that 3, and we're off to the races, and we're running. I can watch film on that for 3 or 4 straight weeks, knowing that that's a tough block, and I can have confidence. I'm like, yeah, I can make that block, and we're all watching film. But all of a sudden, now I'm playing a defensive tackle, and I know that's a tough block, and I'm like, I think I can make it, but I don't know, because that's a different player now that I'm facing. So there is always that concern of, this is the first time that someone physically can do something to make me uncomfortable. And the fact that you do have a very, very good defensive coordinator over there that last year, like you said, put you in chains. Absolutely, that should be a concern.
No, he didn't the first time, though.
No, he did not.
But he adjusted for the second time. And, that's where I think I go back to experience, what you're saying. Like, I do think the experience factor matters. And again, it's not like they're all freshmen, like you said, but you having been in these types of games and being being made uncomfortable like that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have been through a few of those. And if this is your first time,
Yeah.
you know, I just think you're better equipped to handle it if you've been through it.
Then
more
the nice
times.
thing for Oregon is both of these teams haven't been tested this year at all. They've all been on cruise control. And I will say this, having watched good hunks of all three Penn State games, Penn State has played patsies and Penn State has not looked great against those. Every one of those games, there has been pushback. Oregon has had no pushback. And I don't know if this is Penn State just literally playing as vanilla and as bland as humanly possible, and they knew what they had, and they're going to hold everything for Oregon. But I'm telling you, especially like on third downs and even in some fourth down situations, Penn State has not looked particularly sharp all year in their 3 games, and Oregon has. So at least from that just this year, Oregon has looked like the better team than Penn State, both against inferior competition.
And then 2 others, concern or not a concern, the revenge factor.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything to that. I mean, both of these teams know what's at stake. Both of these teams know that they're national title type teams. And I just, and neither one of these ends the season if they lose it. I'm not concerned at all about Penn State being super fired up. I mean, both squads, after a month straight of patsies, dude, both of these teams are going to be chomping at the bit and frothing for this one. And Lanning has done a great job of leaning into these moments and not, doing it's just another game. He goes, no, he will have his team sky high for this, just like James Franklin will.
Okay, and then the last one is Penn State is coming off a bye. Concern or not a concern?
I'd rather Penn State not be. I mean, I early in the season, I don't think the rest is as important, but I do think an extra week of prep, an extra week of seeing Oregon on film. I think, I think Lanning would probably say the same thing. I think you would rather be coming off a bye if you're Penn State. And I don't mean to disparage Northwestern or Oregon State. Something tells me that Oregon has been working behind the scenes on Penn State for a while.
Yeah.
I don't think everything was used to prep Northwestern and Oregon State.
I don't know. I have a lot of respect for both coordinators at Penn State, and I just think that's I think it's an advantage getting a week to just sit and watch you and wait for you.
Yep.
But you're right, Oregon. I mean, I'm sure they've been behind the scenes getting ready for Penn State as well.
I go back to it. If I had to go with my concerns, I'll go with my just top 3 off the top of my head. Defense in big games has been a problem at Oregon. Again, I don't think Dan Lanning has lost a game at Oregon when they have scored less than 32 points. Like, their defense just has not shown up in big games. That's my number 1 concern. Defensive line being number 2, and a young, unproven secondary in big moments when there has been some breakdowns. As you can tell, I think their offense is going to be fine. Most of my concern lies on the defensive side of the football.
Or it could all come back to the fact that James Franklin is 4-20 against the top 10.
Bingo.
And he doesn't win these games.
No,
and
he does not.
He just really doesn't.
No.
And I think it's even worse against top 5. And I'm not sure, where's Oregon ranked this week? Are they 6?
I think 6.
Okay, so this wouldn't apply, but he's 1-15 against the AP top 5.
And I'm telling you,
nobody expects Penn State to win.
No.
And yet they're favored.
Yep. And I said it after 2 weeks, and I know Oregon has come back to the pack a little bit the last 2 weeks where they look great. They just don't look like they did the first 2 weeks. I said it after week 2. Oregon will beat Penn State. Watching these 2 teams, Oregon is better than Penn State. I really do feel that. I just have, every time I've watched Penn State, I get left wanting more, and they just don't look that sharp. So I think Oregon goes in, and I think Oregon nicks them.